Let's get our eyes on the text. We are going to look at a few passages, and theme is going to be how our sin hurts us. And let's see. So I want us to start off here in Jeremiah 2:19. This passage says, it's interesting because it says, your wickedness will punish you. Your wickedness will be the thing that punishes you. And it says your backsliding will rebuke you. So, I often would think about God punishes you because you did something sinful. And that there's a lot of passages that do read that way, and I'm not saying that that's not true, or that it's not often true, or that that's not normally true, or whatever. But I want to just look at this passage and say, your wickedness itself will punish you. Your backsliding will rebuke you. So the subject of the verb is your wickedness or your backsliding. And so then he ties the logic in here. So consider then and realize, like, think about it and realize that this is true, how evil and how bitter it is for you. How evil and bitter it is for you when you forsake the Lord your God and have no awe of me. I mean, interesting. We could just talk a long time about the connection of not having awe of God and going and being wicked and backsliding. That sin is just generated from a place of seeing God as small and unvaluable in our life, and just arbitrary rules that are irrelevant generated from him, and then we move directly to taking care of ourselves because we don't trust him. So we forsake him, we have no awe of him. That passage is fascinating, and a nice long thing to read there in Jeremiah that would back all of that up. Um, let's see. I want to go to a passage I was just looking at, 1 John 5:18. So First John is known, the way that John talks, he speaks in these ways that in a lot of translations, this here in the NIV says, we know that anyone born of God does not continue to sin. But that's the present tense of this word to sin here. Um, yeah, I'm going to have a little bit of a block there. Yeah, hamartano. And so it can't have that continuous presence, because some translations will say no one who is born of God sins. And then everybody goes, I think that everybody reads these passages like I do, or a lot of people do, and just guilt induced and going, oh, I know I sinned today. I'm not born of God. That negative way of reading this is what I want to try and flip. And we may go back and look at through all of First John and some of John to talk about this later. But for now, just to see what he's really trying to say is, partially that possibly, but also the being born of God and not continuing to sin is exactly what the salvation is. He's pulling us out of this trap. You're being saved from this. And so, almost by definition, you're being born out of that. It's not just a continuation of that. The one who was born of God keeps them safe. See, safe. So, this is Jesus. Jesus keeps us safe, and the evil one cannot harm them. So, the evil one here is, kind of the language for the devil here in First John. It's not the only way but the evil one is going to be paneros, and yeah, let me see. I've dropped my Greek here. Let me see if we can find that. Be nice to see. Sorry, I didn't clean this up ahead of time. Just deleting stuff. And I'm still going. It looks like I'm two away. So if we say the evil one here, and I'm going to highlight that and see if it highlights over here. 1 John 5:18. Yeah, ha, paneros. So it's like the evil one. He's not able to harm them. What is the harm? I think that we can see in the context, the harm is the sin. That's what he's saving us from. This evil, broken, unnatural to our originally created nature. And so it sets up this constant binary, the children of God and the whole, we are the children of God. We've been reborn into this new world, this new nature, this new life. And the whole world is under the control of the evil one. That binary there. So I don't think that it's saying, if you sin, or even if you still have some sinful habits that you haven't broken, that you have no new life in God, but it certainly isn't fully realized. And really, this is just an optimistic sort of like, hey, that is exactly what he is saving you from. Not just the consequences of your sin, but the sin itself is consequence. It is what he is saving us from. I at least think that um, needs to be sort of brought back into our theology. Um, let's see. I had a couple of other passages I want to look at. There are ones where there's a connection between. I'm going to go to Psalms, and I'm going to have to look for the Psalm here. I might. No, I think it's Psalm 1. It's either Psalm 106 or Psalm 116. Let's see here. Um, where am I at? Yeah, let's see. Uh, let's see. Yeah. Okay. This passage is really interesting. So this passage, there's a lot of places in the Psalms where there's sort of like recap of God's saving work among the Jews at that time and how he brought them out of Egypt. And they're so laden with snapshot sort of summarizations of theology, and they're so great. So it specifically says in verse 9, that he dried up the Red Sea and brought them through. And he says, he saved them from the hand of the foe, from the hand of the enemy, he redeemed them. The waters then covered their adversaries, that's the Egyptians. Not one of them survived. And look at how they reacted. Then they believed his promises and they sang his praise. They got it. It came together. They saw what God had done. But look at how fickle they were. They soon forgot what he had done and did not wait for his plan to unfold. They soon forgot. I mean, anybody can relate to that? Soon forgetting? Then look at what happens. This is a summary kind of like of the book of Numbers. In the desert, they gave in to their cravings. Not good. In the wilderness, they put God to the test. So they were like craving other stuff. I think this is Numbers 11. Let's see if we can find it. I'm going to type in the craving because I know this part. Yep. Nope. This did that weird thing where it tore me out of Numbers. Anybody Logos can help me out here because I'm not sure why these little simple searches, cravings, I'm gonna have to, it wants me to be in Ephesians for some reason. And I know all the way back, let's see here, craving, the problem here, let's do a Bible word study here from Job and see if we get into a passage in Numbers. Actually, I know it's Numbers 11. Let's just find it. Come on, man. Numbers 11, please. Yeah, so this whole quail thing here. That language of craving, giving into your cravings, it says right in here. See, they started to remember the fish we ate in Egypt at no cost. Oh, yeah, you had it great in Egypt when you were slaves. Oh, we had cucumbers, we had melons, we had leeks, onions, and garlic. Oh, well, heck yeah. Let's go back and be slaves in the land of the Egyptian gods. But now we've lost our appetite. We have never seen anything but this manna. Ugh. Oh, yeah, here's the word crave. This is what the rabble within them begin to crave other food. Just want to see if that's the same word. It looks like it's a different word for crave. And again, I got some wimpy Hebrew abilities. So, I'm not pretending to be an Old Testament professor here. Let's see, we're studying together, right? So this like craving, this like sort of turning away from the goodness of God. Other passages are coming to mind as I'm talking, but where we were back in Psalm 106. If I can get back there using this little arrow. Um, yeah, so here's what's interesting. So they forgot this, they put God to the test, and then here it is right here. So he gave them what they asked for. You know, he gave them what they asked for. They wanted the meat of the quail, sure. He gave it to them, and a wasting disease came with it. You know, It's just something to put your mind on that God will give you what you ask for, and that will mess you up if you what you're asking for is not what He is giving you, is not Himself. So some of this fits into this idea, this modern ethic idea that what we should look for is the thriving of human beings. That, like, if people are flourishing, I hear that language a lot in churches. And sometimes, I mean, that there's something really right about that, that you are not thriving or flourishing when you go for like the leeks and the onions back in Egypt. But here's the problem, in their mind, that would be flourishing. And maybe even if they got back to Egypt for some period of time, they would think that they were flourishing. Hey, this is better than the desert that we were in. Sometimes following God means a downward journey. Jesus is dying on a cross and says, carry a cross with you if you want to follow me. He's not saying, boy, every step of the way is just going to be one step of further flourishing than the other. Um, so I just want to finish this since I only have a tiny little bit of battery here. We're at 4%, so this is going to be short. First Timothy 5 is a passage I've looked at before, but I find it to be another one to really think about in this context. He says here in verse 24 that the sins of some people are obvious and they reach a place of judgment ahead of them. So I think what that's saying is it's like touching the hot stove, it's like you touch that thing. There's some sins that almost immediately punish you back, you know. Um, you know, murder, uh, violence, hurting yourself. Some things just like pretty much as quick as touching the hot stove, you have been judged for that. It's all built in, sort of like that Jeremiah passage. But it does say here that the sins of others trail behind them. And so I think what that needs to leave open for us is the idea that we can't always snapshot how somebody is feeling after sin takes place and then judging whether or not that is actually flourishing and thriving. Because sometimes the paycheck comes down the road. Imagine you go shopping with a credit card and you upgrade some of the things in your home that are, causing you problems, or instead of taking the bus, now you go get a car, but you get it at an incredibly high interest rate. Hey, I'm flourishing today. I'm driving around with a new car smell, and this is great. I would say a lot of sexual sin. It's like I don't question that all the endorphins and things that are wired into us to be experienced sexually don't bring relaxation and enjoyment, but not just in the moment, but even sometimes somewhat afterwards, that you're like, boy, that was great. I feel better. Um, I feel even connected to somebody. That's an amazing feeling. I'm flourishing. But see, sins trail behind as well. They don't always hit you like the hot stove. And in the same way, it says, in the same way, good deeds are obvious. And even those that are not obvious cannot remain hidden forever. So let's look at the depth and complexity of the scriptures and our own lives. And let's think about trusting God more. I think there's going to be a lot of other verses. If you're watching this, I would love to know what other verses come to mind. What are some verses that push against this? If you've read some other part of the scripture lately that either feeds in or pushes back, I would love to hear that. I would love to get some subscriptions, some likes, some shares, whatever the things are that you do, comment, whatever. And let this be a discussion. Maybe you want to pause some of these videos and go study something and then like keep watching or check me. I obviously did some pretty, you know, not great Hebrew studies here for you. There's more time, but I'm out of batteries. So bless you guys, and we will look forward to seeing you guys soon.